Hamas is deeply alarmed in the face of Israel's plan to capture Gaza City. Following the strike on the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, the IDF took responsibility and explained to the foreign media how this accident happened, presenting materials showing that Hamas operated from within the hospital. We will bring you all the details. And elsewhere, United States President Donald Trump again claimed that fewer than 20 hostages are alive and believes the end of the war in 2 to 3 weeks. And meanwhile, our neighbor to the south is preparing for infiltrations from Gaza as the Egyptian army is deploying reinforced military forces on the border with Gaza. In the northern arena, the Air Force eliminated a Hezbollah terrorist who tried to restore infrastructure in southern Lebanon. This is part of an ongoing discussion that is going on regarding Hezbollah's future in Lebanon, when and how it will be disarmed, and what that will look like. And we'll bring you some more details about this. And meanwhile, in neighboring Syria, an IDF force entered a village and arrested 6 terrorists amidst American pressure for an agreement between Syria and Israel that can be announced at the United Nations General Assembly meeting in early September. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host Yair Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel. The words of Defense Minister Israel Katz that the city of Gaza will be like Rafah and like Beit Hanun aroused great fear amongst the city's residents and the Hamas leadership. Senior security officials say that in Gaza City, the military and the civilian command headquarters of Hamas are concentrated together with several senior Hamas officials, including Izzeddin El-Hadid, the current commander of Hamas's military wing, and his deputy, Raed Saad. And in a related story, security officials refer to the strike at the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, in which, according to reports, at least 15 people were killed, including 4 journalists. According to the security officials, the IDF identified a threat from the hospital, and therefore it was bombed, but the circumstances are still under investigation. While all of this is going on, massive amounts of humanitarian aid continue to be sent into the Gaza Strip by trucks and also by airdrops. And to the north, in Lebanon, they are working to concentrate all the weapons in the country in the hands of the state, and Israel expressed unusual support for the effort to disarm Hezbollah, which is using the excuse of the IDF's continued deployment in strategic points of southern Lebanon to continue refusing to hand over its heavy weapons. We'll bring you a full report including Israel's conditions for agreeing to fully withdraw from the Lebanese territory, Hezbollah's statements, the reports, the involvement of the United States and Iran, and more. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 690 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the control of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we begin, I want to call on you to keep supporting the truth. Every comment or share or a like really blesses our work. So guys, keep standing with Israel in this war for the truth, because day by day we hear terrible lies that are being spread around Israel all across the world. And we are here together to share what really is happening in Israel so that you will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And guys, one way that you can do that is by hitting the subscribe button and never missing another episode of Boots on the Ground. Hamas once again proves that it does not represent the residents of the Gaza Strip, but rules them by force, by fear, and also with cruelty. And amongst other things, yesterday, the IDF revealed that the front page photo in the British newspaper, the Daily Mirror, of a child, Karim Ali Fawad Abu Mamer, 3 years of age, echoed the Hamas terror organization's lies by claiming that his condition was caused by famine in the Gaza Strip. But medical documents that Israel revealed shows that the child suffers from a genetic disease that broke out in this body before October 7 even began. And also, last month, Kogat published videos that are documenting abuse by Hamas members of residents in the Gaza Strip, and in the video it circulated on the networks, Hamas operatives were seen beating residents in alleys and in the dark, and even shooting at them. Major General Elian wrote that the Hamas's brutal violence is being used in light of claims and accusations against residents that are suspected of disturbing the public order that the terrorist organization imposes in the Gaza Strip. And with all of that in mind, we need to move on to another topic which has made headlines around the world in the last 24 hours, and that's an IDF strike which resulted in several fatalities at the Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis. The world's leading media outlets extensively covered the IDF strike at the hospital on Monday, including Hamas claims that there were at least 20 fatalities from the strike, including 5 journalists, some of whom also worked for the major news agencies AP and Reuters. A lot of claims have been made about this incident by a lot of people, so it is important that you know the truth of what happened. The IDF spokesperson, Efi Defrin, issued a statement in English to the foreign media in which he explained that Hamas deliberately uses civilian infrastructure and hospitals. In his words, earlier today, IDF forces struck in the area of the Nasser Hospital inside Khan Younis. And I want to make clear from the outset, the IDF does not intend to harm civilians. The IDF makes every effort to minimize harm to civilians while safeguarding the security of our forces. Any incident that raises concerns on this matter is handled by the relevant bodies of the IDF. We operate in an extremely complex reality. Hamas terrorists deliberately use civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, as a shield. They even operate from the Nasser Hospital itself. As a professional army committed to international law, we are obligated to investigate our action thoroughly and professionally. The Chief of Staff instructed that an immediate inquiry will be held to understand the circumstances of the incident and how it happened. Reporting from an active combat zone entails enormous risk, especially in a war against a terrorist organization like Hamas, which cynically hides behind the civilian population. As we have always done, we will present our findings with maximum transparency. We regret any harm to innocents and remain committed to fighting Hamas while taking all the necessary measures. It is important to point out that, according to the current security concept, any place where terrorists operate, whether it was previously a school or a hospital, becomes a legitimate target. Now, all of Gaza is one large combat zone. If there are terrorists there, that place is fortified, and in accordance with all the laws, the IDF forces are permitted to strike. Another testimony published recently demonstrates the control of the terrorist organizations in this hospital. A spokesman for the American Aid Fund, GHF, the former soldier Zafin D, said in a recent interview that workers from the organization Doctors Without Borders, who operated in the hospital controlled by the terrorist organizations, refused to treat 20 GHF workers who needed medical treatment. These workers were wounded as a result of a Hamas ambush, but 12 of them lost their lives, some of them, as stated, because they were not treated in the hospital in time. So we need to keep all of this in mind as we look at what's going on in Gaza City today, where there is growing alarm that the IDF might actually carry out the decision of the Security Cabinet to take control of the city. Senior figures in the Fatah movement in Gaza who are in contact with the Hamas leadership say that this was the main reason that Hamas agreed to accept the mediator's proposal for a partial deal and a 60-day ceasefire in an attempt to disrupt the Israeli move and gain time to rebuild its forces in Gaza. However, senior security officials say that the Gaza City is the backbone of life in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas's military and civilian command headquarters are concentrated. This includes Izzeddin El-Hadid, the current commander of Hamas's military wing, who replaced Mohammed Sinwar after he was eliminated by Israel and his deputy Raed Saad. The security officials also say that since Operation Gideon's Chariots B began, Palestinian fears have increased that the implementation of this operation will be the most dangerous since the start of this war. Now, here are a few things to know about Gaza City, which, as its name implies, is the political, the social, media, and cultural center of the Gaza Strip. Since the beginning of the IDF's ground operations in the Gaza Strip at the end of October 2023, Israel has carried out a long series of military actions in the city that affected all its neighborhoods. The eastern neighborhoods, and also especially most of the parts of the El Zaytun neighborhood, as well as the Sajaiya and the Tufa neighborhoods, are amongst the most dangerous areas in the city. The eastern neighborhoods, and especially most parts of the El Zaytun neighborhood, as well as the Sajaiya and the Tufa neighborhoods, are amongst the most damaged areas in the city. Also, heavily damaged was the Tel El Hawa neighborhood in the southwest and parts of the El Rimal neighborhood in the west. Partial damage was also caused to other neighborhoods in the city. And most of the residents of the northern parts of the Gaza Strip were forced to flee to the center and to the south, so the number now stands at about 1 million people. The last hostage deal and the ceasefire allowed their return as part of the terms of the deal for the return of the hostages. And many of those who returned to their homes set up tents in their areas of residence after their homes were destroyed in this fighting. Hamas's great fear is now that the IDF will destroy all its central military infrastructures in the city, and that about 1 million Palestinians who serve as their human shields will be forced to leave when they are already crowded in the center and also in the west, and there is nowhere to evacuate them inside the city or in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, which has become a military area under full Israeli control. In Hamas, they fear this time the displacement of the residents of the city of Gaza will be final, with no possibility of return, which will allow Israel to use this as a bargaining chip to return hostages in exchange only for the return of the residents to their homes. And meanwhile, the announcement by Defense Minister Israel Katz, who said last Friday that the city of Gaza will be like Rafah and Beit Hanun, arouses great fears in the city of Gaza. Rumors are rampant, as it often is the case in a war zone. And one rumor that many residents appear to take very seriously is that Israel is determined to turn the city of Gaza into ruins in order to implement President Donald Trump's migration plan. Now, with that in mind, it's also important to remember that the IDF spokesperson's unit announced over the last 24 hours that 116 humanitarian aid packages were airdropped across the Gaza Strip by Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Germany, and Indonesia. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on this issue, so keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And it is very important that you keep standing with us in this battle. And guys, we have launched a campaign to stand with Israel when all the world is spreading lies about what's happening right now. You can help us create more content on a daily basis. To do that, you can hit the donate button, and you can also visit our website at tbn.org/standwithisrael. Again, that's tbn.org/standwithisrael. Now, we're keeping our focus on Gaza, but moving a little bit further south to the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt. This border hasn't been in the news much over the past 22 months of this war, and that might have been a mistake. However, it's in the news now, and the reason is that Egypt has in recent days begun to reinforce army forces in northern Sinai, near the border with Israel. This is part of Egypt's preparations for Operation Gideon's Chariots B, according to a report by the Israeli news channel Kan 11. In Egypt, there is fear that a large number of Gazan residents will decide that they have no other option but to try and rush the border and flee into Egyptian territory under cover of the expansion of the fighting. The Egyptian army is being deployed to the border region to make sure that that does not happen, and if the past is any indication, they will be ordered to use extreme violence if necessary to keep Palestinian refugees out of Egypt. It's important to remember that according to the Camp David Accords peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, any change in the deployment of forces near the border must be done in coordination with Israel. However, according to reports in the Arab world, about 40,000 additional Egyptian soldiers have arrived in the area together with armored vehicles. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on this matter, so keep spreading the truth, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Now, we're shifting our focus to diplomatic developments related to the ongoing events in the Gaza Strip. At a press conference held on Monday in the Oval Office, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was asked by one of the reporters what he thinks about the Israeli strike on the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. He answered, "I don't know that. I'm not happy about it. I don't want to see that. But at the same time, we have to end this nightmare." He also hinted again that some of the 20 living hostages might no longer be alive, and added, "In the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will see a complete end. We cannot forget October 7th. We must finish with this." The president answered reporters and their questions in the Oval Office last Friday also, and he was asked, amongst other things, about the opposition inside Israel regarding the attack on Gaza City and amongst some of the families of the hostages in particular. The president cut off the reporter's question and said, "I'm the one who got all the hostages out. If not for me, they wouldn't have gotten out." He also noted that he knows the families of the hostages and spoke with them, saying, "They are wonderful people," and added, "Now, there are 20 living hostages, but it is probably not really 20, because some of them are not around anymore." Here, at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on this matter, so keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. Now, before we move on to what's happening on the border with Lebanon and how the war with Hezbollah is progressing, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. We, at Boots on the Ground, need you so that we can continue to bring you content about what's happening in Israel. So, we call on you to help us share the truth and support our work. You can visit www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. Again, that's tbn.org/standwithisrael and join the campaign to share the truth. You can also hit that donate button and make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. And now we are moving to the northern arena as reports out of Syria indicate that in the last 24 hours an IDF force including about 11 vehicles entered the town of Bet Jin at the foot of Mount Hermon and arrested 6 Syrians. The operation also included a brief exchange of fire with the residents of the Sunni-majority villages who attempted to stop the IDF forces from entering. The Syrian Foreign Ministry condemned the moves as a blatant violation of Syrian sovereignty and its territorial integrity and a direct threat to the regional security and peace. We'll keep an eye on this story to see how things will develop. And next door, in Lebanon, attempts by the internationally recognized government to disarm Hezbollah are being met with attempts by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps to reinforce and rearm the group. TBN Israel senior investigative journalist Tomer Zmora brings us a report that the security establishment identified that Iran has transferred to Hezbollah more than $1 billion since the ceasefire with Israel began last year. In part, because of this ongoing support from the IRGC, at this stage, the terrorist organization is not willing to conduct any dialogue before an Israeli withdrawal from the country, a halt to the strikes, and the release of the Hezbollah terrorists that are being held by Israel. However, the Prime Minister's office issued a statement on Monday in which it praised the decision of the Lebanese government that is led by President Michel Aoun to act to disarm Hezbollah by the end of 2025. In the framework of the statement, it was clarified that Israel is ready to support Lebanon's efforts to achieve this goal with a focus on the security and the stability of both countries. Now, let's take a few steps back and look at the big picture here. As mentioned, Netanyahu's office expressed support for Lebanon's efforts to disarm Hezbollah. And according to the statement, the recent decision of the Lebanese cabinet to act to disarm Hezbollah by the end of 2025 was a significant decision. This decision marks an opportunity for Lebanon to restore its sovereignty, rehabilitate state institutions, the army, and the government without the involvement and the influence of non-state actors. In light of this important development, Israel is ready to support Lebanon in its efforts to disarm Hezbollah and to work together towards a safer and more stable future for both countries. If the Lebanese security forces take steps that disarm Hezbollah, Israel will take steps as well, including a gradual reduction of IDF presence in coordination with the United States. Now is the time for Israel and Lebanon to move forward in a sprint of cooperation, focusing on the shared goal of disarming Hezbollah and promoting the stability and the prosperity of both countries. And on the other side of this discussion, in recent days, the Lebanese channel El Jadid reported that Israel agreed in principle to a gradual halt to strikes and assassinations, a gradual withdrawal from several occupied areas, and the completion of the issue of the Lebanese prisoners. However, it was written that the Israeli side is demanding that the border strip of the destroyed villages will not be repopulated and that the area be an economic zone. That is, factories belonging to the Lebanese state will be established there, and there will be a separation between the populated Lebanese villages and the Israeli communities on the border side of the border. The report said, in practice, this is an industrial buffer zone without residents, and went on to claim that the Israeli incursions along the border are part of the effort to establish such a buffer zone. The Lebanese presidency published on Saturday that President Aoun announced that Beirut had not received an official notice of an Israeli intention to establish a buffer zone in the south. It's also important to point out that Lebanon's current leadership, which includes the three most senior figures, President Joseph Aoun, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, and Speaker of Parliament Nabih Berri, is working to advance a process to concentrate weapons in the hands of the state of Lebanon. This is an idea that was decided on already in the ministerial statement of the new Lebanese government upon its formation, and if we go back further, this is an idea that was set already in the political agreement known as the Taif Agreement, which ended the Lebanese civil war in the 1990s. I was in kindergarten back then, but I remember my parents talking about this situation. But in any case, the new government of Lebanon has firmly decided that weapons will be concentrated in the hands of the army. It's very important to point out that Hezbollah, which has representatives in the Lebanese parliament, had an opportunity to give its input into this decision. Now, they are demanding that any discussion about its weapons be held in the framework of a debate on an internal Lebanese defensive strategy. They are also using the excuse of Israel's supposed refusal to implement the ceasefire agreement to continue refusing to move forward on this issue. To give a little context here, after the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon came into effect on November 27 of 2024, there remained an Israeli presence at 5 points in southern Lebanon, in the areas of El Hamamash, El Zazia, El Aweida, Jabal Balat, and El Labuna. There is no Lebanese party that agrees to the Israeli presence in the country, not the current government, and of course, not Hezbollah. As the side note, the IDF positions are on the high ground in these areas, which is very important for a military point of view. And some of them are just a few hundred meters inside Lebanese territory, literally within visual range of the Israeli border. We're not talking about huge chunks of territory here. Nevertheless, the difference between Hezbollah and the official Lebanese actors is that the terrorist organization demands an IDF withdrawal before any step on its part. And according to Hezbollah, the terrorist organizations and Lebanon did not violate the ceasefire agreement, while Israel has violated it already thousands of times, according to them. For instance, on August 18th, it was claimed in the Lebanese newspaper Al-Akbar, which is affiliated with Hezbollah, that the 5 points where Israel is present have already become 7. It also quoted a source who claimed that Israel holds about 14 kilometers along the southern border, where through direct presence or the establishment of a buffer zone, and that at the same time the ceasefire came into effect, the area stood at only 11 kilometers. So much for what Hezbollah has to say about all of this. Now, let's take a look at what other players are saying. The American envoys dealing with the Lebanese issue now are the United States ambassador to Turkey, Thomas Barak, who also reserves as the American envoy to Syria and to Lebanon. And also serving as a diplomatic envoy to Lebanon is Morgan Ortagus, who is returning to this role after a somewhat confusing chain of events that saw her leave the region for a time, but now she's back. But she's definitely back now, and she'll be taking part in the discussions that are moving forward in Lebanon. The latest proposal to Lebanon submitted by Barak includes the arrangements of various issues requiring treatment in the country, amongst them the disarming of Hezbollah. But not only that, the proposal won the approval of the Lebanese government in 2 sessions held on August 5 and 7, although the Shiite ministers left that last session in protest. While Hezbollah supporters claim that the Lebanese government makes decisions according to the wishes of the United States and Israel, opponents of the terrorist organization fear continued Iranian involvement in the country. And on that note, it is important to point out that senior Iranians recently received quite a few signals from the new Lebanese leadership which demanded that they not interfere in internal Lebanese affairs. One of the leaders of the opposition to Iranian involvement in the country is the Lebanese Foreign Minister Youssef Raji, who has already published condemnations of statements by Iranian officials who crossed lines. Another player in all of this, of course, is the United Nations. The United Nations Security Council was supposed to hold discussions this week about the extension of UNIFIL's mandate, which is supposed to end at the end of this month. For now, no decision on this issue has been taken, and President Aoun emphasized on Saturday the importance of renewing the mandate until full implementation of Resolution 1701. France submitted a draft resolution on this issue, under which it is written that the proposed extension of the mandate is until August 31st of 2026, and that they will work towards a withdrawal of UNIFIL with the aim of making the Lebanese government the sole authority responsible for security in the south, provided that it maintains full control over all the country's territory and that both sides agree on a comprehensive political arrangement. In other words, the end of the UN's peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon is within sight, but the Lebanese government and some of its supporters think it would be best to keep it in place for now. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on all these issues, but before we move on, please give a click to that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time. And if you want to stand with us, stand with Israel, we just launched a campaign to create more content on this issue, so go to tbn.org/standwithisrael or hit the donate button here on YouTube. And now we are switching our focus slightly to events in Iran. where a member of the advisory council to the leader in Iran, Mohammad Sadr, sparked a storm in a media interview on Sunday when he accused Israel of assassinating former Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, which is kind of an old conspiracy theory. But he also accused Russia of betraying the shared interest that it has with Iran, and according to him, Moscow passed to Israel sensitive information about Iran's air defensive systems during the clashes with Israel, a claim for which no external evidence was presented. Sadr's statements reflect the growing tension in Tehran, Moscow, and their relations since the 12-day war against Israel, in which Iran claimed that Russian support was mostly in statements and not in deeds. This is despite the strategic agreement signed between them at the beginning of 2025 in Moscow, which was intended to strengthen military cooperation. And at the same time, it was reported that Iran recently turned to Belarus for assistance in rebuilding the air defensive array that was damaged in the Israeli attacks in an attempt to make use of the fact that this country is not exposed to significant diplomatic sanctions. Israel is closely following these developments, and security officials assess that the threat messages and the militant declarations coming from Tehran are intended to hide the pressure that the regime has been under since the war with Israel, as well as to project confidence to the local public of Iran, whose trust in the Iranian institutions has been harmed significantly. The Israeli security establishment continues to prepare for every possible scenario while closely monitoring all military activity and new threats. So guys, keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, remember, this is a spiritual war, so we call on you to pray. Let's pray for wisdom to our leaders, to your leaders, to make the right decisions in these conflicts. Very complicated. Let's pray for the security of the IDF soldiers that are leaving their families, their loved ones, and going into combat areas, if it's the Gaza Strip, Syria, Lebanon, Judea and Samaria, in order to make sure that all of us are safe and that the terrorists are dealt with. Let's pray for the hostages to come back home safely, mentally and physically. And let's keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.